Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And today we're diving deep into a topic that I think affects all of us in some way, shape, or form, and that is motivation.
Ooh, that's a big one.
It is a big one, and we've got a stack of research and articles, even some cool quotes that I think will help us really unpack this topic because it is such a complex beast.
Yeah, it really is. And it's something that we all struggle with at some point or another in our lives.
Absolutely. And one thing that's so interesting is a lot of the research suggests there's this gap between what actually motivates us and what we think motivates us.
Right. Yeah, we're not always as self-aware as we like to think we are.
Totally. And then we're going to uncover something called the blueberry phenomenon.
The blueberry phenomenon. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Where even our relationships can sometimes drain our motivation.
Oh, that's interesting. I can see that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with the fundamentals. Like, how would you even define motivation?
Well, I think at its core, motivation is that driving force that propels us toward change. So whether it's a change in our behavior or thoughts, feelings, or even our environments.
So it's not just about achieving something specific. It's that want for change?
Exactly. It's the underlying desire for something to be different. And I love this quote from Zig Ziglar.
Oh, yeah.
He said, "People often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily."
I love that that's so true.
Right.
It's not a one-time thing.
It's an ongoing process. You got to keep cultivating it.
Yeah, so to understand how to cultivate it, I guess we have to understand what influences it in the first place.
Absolutely. So let's talk about needs, those underlying needs that really drive us.
Right, okay, so like basic survival needs.
Yeah, those are definitely part of it. We've got the physiological needs, the food, the water, the sleep.
Right.
Those are crucial for our survival. But we also have these psychological needs that go beyond just staying alive.
Okay, so what are some of those?
Things like autonomy, that desire to feel in control of our own lives. Mastery, that urge to get good at something, to develop skills, and then belonging, that human need for connection with others.
Yeah, we're not just robots programmed for survival. Like we need purpose and connection. And
Exactly. And these needs can manifest in so many different ways. And one example that the research highlights is exercise.
Oh, that's a good one.
Think about it.
Yeah.
The same activity can be fueled by completely different motivations.
Totally. So you could have one person exercising because they just love it.
Exactly, for the pure joy of it.
And then somebody else because their doctor told them to.
Right, or to achieve a specific fitness goal, or maybe for the social connection of a group class.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's like looking under the hood and seeing all the different mechanisms at work. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when psychologists try to study this thing called motivation, like what do they actually look at? What are some of the things that they measure or observe?
Well, they look at a lot of different factors. They'll observe behavior, things like the intensity and effort someone puts into a task, how quickly they act when they're motivated.
So like if somebody suddenly starts waking up early to go for a run.
Right, that could be a sign.
Okay.
But they'll also look at engagement levels. How enthusiastic, interested and attentive someone is.
Like when you get so absorbed in something, you completely lose track of time.
Exactly. That's a good sign of motivation.
Yeah.
And they might even look at physiological changes, like heart rate.
Oh, wow.
Or even brain activity patterns.
Wow. So there are physical manifestations.
There really are.
Of motivation that we might not even be aware of.
It's a really intricate process.
So can you walk me through like how this motivation process actually unfolds?
Sure. So think of it as a cycle. It all starts with our needs, those internal drivers.
Right, those physiological and psychological needs we talked about.
Exactly. And then come our cognitions, so our thoughts, beliefs, expectations about the situation. And those shape how we interpret our needs, and they influence our emotional responses.
Right. So if I believe I can achieve something, I'm going to be more likely to feel excited and motivated to go for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you have doubts, that can hinder your motivation.
And then all of that culminates in behavior, right?
Exactly. The actions we take, but the cycle doesn't stop there.
Oh.
The outcome of our actions feeds back into the system.
Okay.
Either strengthening our motivation or causing us to kind of reassess and reevaluate.
So if I try something new and it goes well, I'm more likely to feel motivated to keep going.
Right.
But if I face setbacks, I might have to adjust my approach.
Exactly. It's this dynamic interplay between internal and external factors that constantly shape our motivation.
So it's not just about willpower.
It's way more than willpower.
There's a whole system. Yeah.
A whole system at play.
Right.
And there's this really interesting model called the self-concordance model that helps us understand different types of motivation.
Now I'm intrigued. Tell me about this model.
Okay, so this model proposes that there are 4 types of motivation.
Okay.
External, interjected, identified, and intrinsic.
Okay, break those down for me.
All right, so external motivation is all about those external rewards or punishments. So you're doing something because you want to gain something or avoid a negative consequence.
So like studying for an exam to get a good grade.
Exactly, or cleaning your room to avoid getting grounded.
I see.
Yeah. And then there's interjected motivation, which is a bit more internal, but it's still rooted in external pressure.
Okay.
It's that should voice in your head.
The shoulds, yes.
Like exercising because you think you should look a certain way.
We all have those.
Right. And we have identified motivation.
Okay.
This is where you recognize the value and importance of a goal, even if it's not inherently enjoyable. You do it because it aligns with your values or your vision for yourself.
So like pursuing a challenging career path because it's something you're passionate about.
Exactly.
Even though there might be some tough days.
Even if there are tough days.
Yeah.
Exactly. And finally, we have intrinsic motivation. This is the pure enjoyment.
Oh, yeah.
And satisfaction.
That's the good stuff.
It is, you're doing something simply because you love it.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like work at all.
That's the dream.
It is. And what's cool about this self-concordance model is it really highlights the benefits of setting self-concordant goals. So goals that align with our values.
Right. So if we want to be truly motivated and fulfilled, we have to make sure our goals match up with our values.
Absolutely. It's about finding that alignment.
Okay.
But, even when we have goals that are aligned with our values, there are times when we still struggle. And that brings us to procrastination and avoidance.
Yes, the struggle is real.
It is real.
I think everybody listening right now has probably experienced that at some point.
Absolutely. And it turns out procrastination and avoidance are deeply tied to our motivation. Oh, interesting. So it's not just laziness or bad time management.
Not necessarily. There's more to it than that.
So what are some of the factors that contribute to it then?
Well, unmet needs can be a huge driver.
Okay.
If you're exhausted, hungry, feeling isolated, it's so much harder to find the energy to tackle those challenging tasks.
Right, because your basic needs aren't met. It's like your motivation reserves are depleted.
Exactly. And it's not just the physical needs, either, unmet psychological needs like autonomy or mastery can also contribute.
So if I feel like I have no control over my work or that I'm not good at something, I might be more likely to just avoid it altogether.
Exactly. And then we have our thoughts, our beliefs.
Yeah.
That negative self-talk, the I'm not good enough or I'll never succeed. That can really create obstacles.
It's amazing how powerful our thoughts are, right?
They really are.
They can either propel us forward or hold us back.
Absolutely.
And then obviously emotions play a huge role too.
Of course, fear of failure, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed can lead to avoidance. It's like our emotions are sending us these warning signals, even if those signals aren't always accurate or helpful.
Exactly.
And then what about our environment? Does that play a role?
Absolutely. Our environment matters a lot.
Yeah.
Distractions, lack of support, a chaotic workspace, all of that can make it harder
to stay motivated and focused.
Exactly.
So sometimes it's not just us, it's our surroundings that are either helping or hindering us.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Our relationships can actually impact our motivation.
Oh, okay. This is where the blueberry phenomenon comes in.
This is it.
I've been waiting for this one.
All right. So the blueberry phenomenon refers to how certain relationships can leave us feeling drained and demotivated.
Interesting.
Like blueberries, they might seem sweet and appealing on the surface, but they can leave us feeling kind of blue and depleted.
So these aren't necessarily toxic relationships.
Right.
But they're somehow sapping our energy and motivation.
It could be a friend who's constantly negative, a family member who's overly critical, or even a partner who, despite good intentions, undermines our sense of autonomy.
Wow, okay.
Or competence.
So it's a good reminder to pay attention to the company we keep.
Absolutely.
Because even the people closest to us can affect our motivation.
In both positive and negative ways.
So given that our motivation ebbs and flows and it's influenced by so many factors, like how do we keep that fire burning bright?
Well, that's where the fascinating world of the motivation cycle and goal-setting strategies come into play.
Oh, I can't wait to dive into that.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's what we'll be exploring next.
Okay, let's do it.
Awesome. So, one of those fascinating things about motivation is that it's not this like constant, unwavering force.
Okay.
It kind of ebbs and flows like our energy levels throughout the day.
So even the most driven people experience those dips in motivation.
Absolutely. Nobody's immune to it.
Oh.
And understanding this cycle is crucial when it comes to setting ourselves up for success. Because we all have all these different motives competing for our attention.
It's like this mental tug of war.
Exactly. And different types of goals are actually better suited for different tasks.
Okay, so it's not just about setting any goal, it's about being strategic.
Precisely for those less enjoyable tasks,
Yeah.
the tedious ones, short-term goals are incredibly helpful.
Okay.
Breaking down a daunting task into these manageable chunks with frequent feedback on your progress can keep you engaged.
So instead of feeling overwhelmed by this massive project,
Right.
you're focusing on those smaller milestones.
Exactly. And those smaller wins, those little victories, fuel the motivation to keep going.
It's like a positive feedback loop.
It is.
One win leads to more motivation, which leads to another win.
That's the idea.
Now, for tasks that are inherently more interesting or enjoyable long-term goals, tend to be more effective.
Exactly. They offer more flexibility, more autonomy, allowing you to tap into that intrinsic motivation.
Right, because if you're already passionate about something, you don't necessarily need those constant...
Yeah, you don't need those constant short-term
wins
to keep you going.
Okay.
And then there's another important factor, immediacy.
Okay.
We're naturally drawn to goals that feel closer, more tangible.
So a goal that's like years away.
Yeah, it's less likely to...
Just motivating.
To spark that fire.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why breaking down those larger goals into those smaller milestones is so important.
Okay.
Because it helps you maintain that sense of momentum.
Whether it's short-term or long-term, it seems like making it feel real and achievable is key.
You got it.
As we've been looking through all this research, I've noticed a ton of book titles.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like there's a whole library out there dedicated to just motivation.
There is a lot of fascination with this topic.
I'm telling you, this deep dive has just scratched the surface.
We've just skimmed the surface.
But I am intrigued by some of these titles.
Oh, which ones have caught your eye?
Well, talent is overrated.
Okay, yeah.
Makes me wonder if motivation is really the key to success.
Right.
Even more so than natural talent.
Interesting.
And then the war of art.
Ooh.
That one just sounds intense.
It does.
What kind of battles are we facing when we try to tap into our creative potential?
That's a great question. And that book really explores the internal resistance we often face when we're pursuing those creative endeavors.
It's amazing how this one topic motivation has so many different layers.
It really does.
Feels like we could do a whole series on this.
We probably could.
And still not cover it all.
Yeah. I think even in this deep dive, we've uncovered some really powerful insights.
For sure.
Into how motivation works and how we can harness its power.
Yeah, let's do a little recap for our listeners.
Okay.
First and foremost, motivation is complex.
It is.
It's not just about willpower or setting goals. It's influenced by our needs, thoughts, feelings, environment, relationships.
All those things work together.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is it's not a fixed state.
No, it's a process.
It's this dynamic process that's constantly fluctuating.
Constantly changing.
So if you're feeling stuck or unmotivated, that's not a sign of weakness or failure.
Not at all.
It's just part of the process.
It's a natural part of the cycle.
And by understanding how this cycle works, we can develop strategies to navigate those dips.
Right, to keep moving forward.
And then knowing those different types of motivation, from external rewards to that inner passion, can help us fine-tune our approach.
Absolutely.
And we also talked about those motivational roadblocks.
Oh, yes.
Procrastination and avoidance.
The dreaded procrastination.
But they're not just about laziness or poor time management.
They often stem from much deeper issues.
Yeah, like unmet needs or limiting beliefs.
Exactly, or challenging emotions or even draining relationships.
We learned about aligning our goals with our values.
Yes, a crucial point.
And the blueberry phenomenon, those relationships that can drain our motivation.
It's important to be mindful of who we surround ourselves with.
So as you move forward with all of these insights about motivation, remember to be kind to yourself.
Yes. Self-compassion is key.
Experiment with different approaches.
Absolutely.
And stay curious about what truly drives you.
That's the most important thing.
And I think one of the sources mentioned that motivation can be measured through brain activity.
Oh, that's interesting.
So what do you think motivates you the most, based on how your brain and body respond?
That's a really thought-provoking question.
Yeah, when you're really engaged and energized, what's happening in those moments?
What are those cues that your body's giving you?
Exactly. I love that question.
Me too.
And remember, we've only just scratched the surface here.
Oh, yeah?
So if you're as fascinated by this topic as we are, be sure to check out all the books and resources mentioned in the show notes.
There's so much more to explore.
There's a whole world of knowledge out there.
Happy exploring.
Yes. Keep diving deep.
Until next time.
Wow. It's amazing how much there is to motivation.
I know, right? It's like this everyday thing we experience, but
yeah,
there's so much depth to it.
It's one of those things that you don't realize how complex it is until you really start digging into it.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about these deep dives.
Me too.
It's like peeling back those layers, uncovering those hidden connections.
And having those aha moments.
Exactly.
So were there any insights from today that particularly resonated with you?
You know what really struck me is just how much our environment and our relationships can impact our motivation.
Yeah, it's not always just about that internal drive.
Right. It's not just willpower.
It's about creating those conditions where motivation can actually flourish.
That's such a good point because we often overlook that.
Yeah.
You know, the power of our surroundings, the people we surround ourselves with.
It's like we're not just these isolated beings striving for our goals in a vacuum.
Exactly. We're part of this interconnected web.
And that web can either support us or hinder us.
And the cool thing is, that means we have more agency than we think.
Right.
Because we can be mindful of our surroundings. We can nurture those supportive relationships. We can seek out environments that energize us.
It's like working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Understanding those forces that shape our motivation and then intentionally shaping them to work in our favor.
I love that. So to wrap up this deep dive into motivation, let's just recap some of the key points.
Oh, yes, sounds good.
We explored the different types of needs that drive us, those basic survival needs, but also those psychological needs for autonomy, mastery, connection.
And then that whole process of how motivation unfolds, starting with our needs, then filtering through our thoughts and emotions, and then leading to action.
And of course, we can't forget about those motivational roadblocks, procrastination and avoidance.
Oh, yeah, those are always lurking.
But they're not just about laziness. They often come from those deeper issues.
Right, those unmet needs, the limiting beliefs, challenging emotions.
And sometimes even draining relationships.
And then aligning our goals with our values.
Oh, that's crucial for long-term fulfillment and motivation.
Definitely. And we talked about the blueberry phenomenon.
Those relationships that can sap our energy.
Yeah, those are sneaky ones.
So as you move forward with all these new insights about motivation, remember to be kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
Experiment with different approaches, and most importantly, stay curious about what truly drives you.
Keep exploring. Keep that curiosity alive.
And remember, this is just the beginning.
Yes.
It's a whole world of knowledge out there waiting to be discovered.
So until next time, keep diving deep, everyone.
Happy motivating.